One of the things that Windows Server 2012 R2 introduced were several additional commandlets for PowerShell in order to work with your IP addressing and your networking options. This is a huge benefit because now it doesn't really matter whether I'm working with a GUI-based server, if I'm working with server core. It doesn't matter whether the server's local or remote because I can use PowerShell remoting and execute these same commands on several servers at once. This means I have powerful scripting and automation capabilities, so knowing the PowerShell commandlet side is very useful. With PowerShell, finding the commandlets, there are so many of them now, and let me help you with that. So Get Help is a great discovery tool for this, and one way to find the commandlets for the networking is that they are prefixed with, the noun is prefixed with net as part of the noun. And so let me give you a list of them here. Now you can see that this list just ran on, and there's a lot of things in this list. A lot of them don't necessarily have to do with basic IP addressing and the networking that I want to work with, because there's so many of them. However, the ones that I do want to work with are listed right here, and you can see that mainly they come from a particular module called net TCP/IP. So another way to get this list of all these commandlets is to use get command. And I'm going to use the module parameter and say that I want this net TCP/IP. And now I get that list specific to that module. So it reduced the amount that was there quite a bit. Now I realize there's still a lot of them here, but I'm going to take you through several of the ones that you can work with. The first one is, let's get some of the information about our IP addressing. So get net IP address will let us see that. So get net IP address, and I'm going to use the tab key to cycle through these commandlets. And you can see I can cycle back and forth by hitting tab or shift tab to go in reverse. And I'm just going to run this. Get net IP address gives me some basic information about the IP addresses that are on my adapters. And it looks like there's a long list here, and there actually is. You can see I get my IPv6 addressing, and it tells you here the address family is from IPv6. And so for the different adapters, the interfaces that I have, it comes up and gives me those, and it also will give me my IPv4. Now, if I wanted to isolate this, something that you can do to isolate it to, let's say, the IPv4 family, is you can take a look at the help file. So get net IP address with get help. And I always like to look at detail. That way you also get examples to work with to help you work with this. And you can examine the help file for the different types of parameters you have that will allow you to control what you're seeing on the screen. So I'm going to scroll up to that parameter list. And the definition for all of these parameters, what each one of them does, is here below in this parameters section. This is another reason I like detailed or dash full, because then it explains what each one of those are. One of them that I'm going to use right now is called address family, and I can specify if I just want to see the IPv4 or IPv6 addresses. So in this case, get net IP address, and I would like to use address family IPv4. Now I just get the IPv4 addresses, and I don't have to look at all the IPv6 stuff. Also keep in mind that when you get information back from PowerShell, you're seeing some of the information, but not necessarily all of it. So if you want to see all of it, and there is quite a bit, you want to select all those properties. You can then see all the information being listed. And as I said, there's quite a bit of information, so any kind of question you could have, it'll get answered. Now, get net IP address is just one of several different commandlets to give you information about your IP addresses. One of the other ones that'll be specific towards your interfaces is get net IP interface. Now, the importance of being able to find out what interfaces and what the interface index is becomes paramount, because with a lot of these commandlets, when you start to work with them, as we're going to do, I'm going to do an example where we make a change. When you make a change, you have to specify what interface index you want to work with. Of course, GetNet IP interface will also have parameter options, so we could just see the v4 ones. And here's my internet or excuse me, my interface index, which is index number 12, and the name of the interface, which sometimes is helpful when we're working with the commandlets. So we have a commandlet that'll let you get your interfaces. We can also look at our IP address configuration. We can also examine the protocols specifically, such as get net IPv4 protocol will give me specific information about how the protocol is configured on my system. Now, there are very common commandlets that you can work with that will not only give you information about your local computer, but also remote computers. If I want to understand more about the entire IP configuration for either my local or a remote machine, there is a commandlet called get net IP configuration. And when I run this, it automatically runs on my local machine. You can see it gives me some of the information that, looks familiar to ipconfig/all. So I get things like my IP address, the default gateway, what DNS server I'm working with. And remember, there's more information here. So I can do the select object property all. I can do format list property all. Commonly, you will see this as FL star, which is the aliases. So I'm going to use that to get all of the information about this. But one of the interesting things that this commandlet does, notice it gave me the computer name that it's giving me this from, which is my local system right now. I can tell this computer, though, what if I want to understand the IP configuration for a remote computer? So I'm going to say for the computer, let's do server core 1. So now I get the IP information and its configuration. This is very useful, even a little bit more useful than the Windows native command ipconfig, simply because we have the ability to grab this from other machines and examine this data to check out their configurations. Now, one of the interesting things is that you will run across this quite a bit where the Windows native commands, such as route print, gives you all the information about the routing on your machine. These commands also do have PowerShell-like versions. So in the case of the route command, there is a PowerShell version called getNetRoute, and it's worth taking time to explore some of those to see what's out there. Now, once you have a command that is giving you the information that you want, when you want to change something, you need to find the commandlets that will help you modify or set or create new IP addresses or changes that you want to do. And an easy way to do that is, let's just use it as an example. Let's say that I wanted to get my address information, and that gave me the information that I wanted. Getting that IP address worked great. I want to see if there's a way I can change things. What you can do is use Get Help. It's a great discovery tool. And I'm going to say star.net or IP address. And the star is going to say, show me all the verbs for this particular commandlet. Now you'll see that I've discovered I've got getNet IP address, but I also have, well, let's see, I can remove an IP address. I can create a brand new IP address, or I can change an existing IP address. Again, you can look at the help and the examples for more information, but I'm going to do an example right now. So a Windows native command that you've probably worked with, a lot of us work with, is netsh. And one of the things we can do with that is I can make changes to an interface, and I want to make changes to the IPv4 interface. If I strike enter, it'll show me the next level down. What I want to do is on netsh interface that's for IPv4, I want to just show the interfaces. So I'm going to do show interface so we can see what ones are out there. And one of the things I want you to notice that I have an interface, index 12, and it's called Ethernet 0. Now, we've already seen that we have PowerShell commandlets that'll get us the same information. But what I want to do is I want to add an additional IP address to this. Well, with netsh, it would look something like this. I would do interface IPv4, and basically kind of repeating that first part of the command, and then address, or add address. I need to tell it what interface I want to add it to. So Ethernet 0. And then I can give it a new IP address, 192.168. And like I did with the graphical, I could create an IP address for .200 and give it a subnet mask. This is what was underneath that advanced tab in the graphical. I can also do this with PowerShell. And there's a couple of different ways to do it, but let me show you a common way. What I like to do is find the interface first and get net IP interface, one of the commandlets we worked with, will give me a list. And the interface that I want is interface 12. That's Ethernet 0. So there happens to be a parameter called interface index that'll let me grab which interface I want. It's giving me both IPv6 and IPv4. I just want the IPv4 one because I want to make a change to it. There's a parameter called address family, so IPv4. Now that I have the right interface, I'm pretty happy. What I can do at this point is now pipe this to the commandlet that'll let me make a change. And I want to add a new IP address, and it's called new net IP address. So I'm going to pipe this. That's grabbing the correct interface. And new IP net IP address has some parameters on it that are mandatory. I need to give it an IP address. Well, 192.168.0.200. And I need to give it its subnet mask called a prefix length. And this is the sitter version of it. So it's a /24. And that'll be the first 3 octets, or the first 24 bits will get masked. I'll hit enter, and it actually added the new IP address to the list. As a matter of fact, let's take a quick look at the graphical just so that we can show you graphically that it's done it as well. And I'll open it up here into properties. And you can see IPv4. And I'm going to go to the advanced tab. And now you see both addresses listed. So in this demonstration, you can see that, yes, you can use the older Windows native commands, in this case, like netsh, or you can use the new PowerShell ones. And for a lot of people, the newer PowerShell ones make more logical sense and give you greater flexibility than those Windows native commands did.